Hi, I'm Danny Knightmare.
I'm Gory B Movie.
A Movie Massacre.
Yeah, and we just saw Smile. We actually just went through a whole marathon of movies, so you're going to get a whole marathon of reviews.
We went to the theater 3 times yesterday. That's an all-time new record.
Yeah, we didn't get back until like about midnight.
And I was very hungover.
Yes. From the night before.
Yes.
I'm drinking pumpkin coffee beer.
That's cannibalism for me.
Oh,
That's awesome, though.
that's sad.
I respect you more as a cannibal. So, yeah, we saw Barbarian, Pearl, and Smile, and we're going to review them in reverse order. So, we saw Smile last. I was really tired when I saw it, but you know what? I actually enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought it was going to. Like, I went into this thinking it was going to be very, I don't know, Truth or Dare, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
I had that kind of vibe from it.
It had that Blumhousey, Truth or Dare, that kind of like for teenagers vibe in the trailers. I would say this is more like The Ring meets It Follows.
Yeah, definitely like that. That's the vibe I would get.
Oh, Grudge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
The Grudge.
Has a very Grudge feel to it. But kind of like It Follows, they are haunted by this somewhat demon that they see everywhere. It doesn't straight up follow them, it smiles at them, and hence it smiles.
Yeah, it really reminded me of It Follows.
Yeah.
Something I will say, speaking, because we made the comparison to the trailer anyway to Truth or Dare. Truth or Dare, I think it was kind of hard because it has a CGI smile, which is kind of silly. And so you get that like uncanny valleyness that makes you laugh when you're supposed to be afraid. The smile never felt cheesy to me.
No.
Like it felt unsettling.
Yeah. I didn't know much about this movie going in other than for the first 2 movies we saw that day, they played a trailer of it. So that trailer is all I kind of had to go. I didn't have a high expectation for it. I actually thought, it looks a little cheesy. But no, actually, I was very entertained. The victims, they pass it on, and they kind of are haunted for anywhere from 4 to 7 days. That's why it's got a very Ring Grudge feel, because once you're cursed, you are cursed. And it had, like, how you kind of break it and how you keep it are very similar to the rules of Ring and stuff, so it's very similar to that.
It was a lot better than I expected. Because
Exactly.
with the smiles, I thought it was just going to be that typical cheesy horror trait where,
Yeah.
oh, I'm evil, so I'm smiling at the camera. And it wasn't that at all. It was done really well.
It's a lot like The Ring in that you have a woman who's a therapist, and she does have, a lot of stuff in her past that is haunting her. And she is trying to help a new patient, and the patient out of nowhere goes from being really terrified, scared for her life, to smiling really eerily, standing, ramrod straight, and then she slits her throat. And so she's at first just traumatized. And then her boss says, you know what? Her boss, Cal Penn, by the way, Kumar, says you need to take a paid week off of work and work on your mental health. And so she does. She goes and sees her therapist and stuff. But then the more she's kind of looking into this, she realizes that the person that she saw commit suicide, they had seen somebody commit suicide a week previous. And you can follow that chain back and back and back. And that's kind of the rabbit hole she's going down is, between 4 and 7 days, these people, after witnessing a horrible suicide, end up committing suicide in front of other people.
Yeah, so that's why it has a very Ring presence. And also, like, the way they're haunted is very much like it follows, like, The Grudge in a sense.
Well, and in regards to that, because it can be somebody who's actually there, but they're not usually. She usually finds out that they weren't actually smiling. It's in her head. Movie's very much about like what's in your head. So sometimes the person isn't even physically there. She sees somebody and it's not that person, or she'll see somebody who's passed on, or just other people who couldn't possibly be there. And it is this entity that feeds on trauma. And I think this movie, I didn't expect it to have such a really good theme to it about how like trauma kind of, begets trauma. Like people who have been traumatized, sometimes they end up causing trauma for other people because they can't cope. Yeah. And so that becomes this like cycle of trauma, where some people just can't get better and then they just spread that trauma, like even with her backstory, she saw her mother commit suicide and her mother, I guess, regretted it towards the end and asked her for help. And she's 10 years old. She didn't know what to do. So now she has her own trauma about it, so just kind of, you pass it on. The more these people find unhealthy ways to share their trauma with somebody else, the more that person carries it and then they pass it on. So it's kind of thematic of what happens in real life.
I feel like a lot of negative people would say that it relies on jump scares. It does have a lot of jump scares, but it doesn't do it on the reliance of it, because I found them to actually be very scary, and it really worked. I was going to die.
I thought he was going to have a heart attack, for real.
I paused and said, this may be the last film of my life. I don't know if I'm going to make it out here.
Exactly. Now, I personally didn't really like it. I think the first half did a lot of that, but it got a lot better afterwards. I also just hated the title screen because it itself is this loud jump scare where just bright red smile, it's flashing. And
see, it relies on score a lot with that, doesn't it? It's just right in your face. Like
the score has it sounds like feet running and pounding. The score is really unsettling.
Yeah, and we also had some rowdy teenagers, so I wasn't sure sometimes if it was the score or them. It was very confusing because they were kind of ruining the experience for me. But other than that, I really was invested in this film. I liked it a lot more. I didn't care for the jump scares, but I'm not saying that they don't work, because I saw them work on you several times.
And they don't work on me that much. That's one of the first films that I've seen where it gets me.
And to comment on what Tom's saying in the chat, that it sounds a lot like Truth or Dare, I think the trailer and the premise does make it sound like that. The difference is Truth or Dare is very much like for teenagers. It's beautiful people in fun situations like parties and stuff. This is an adult movie.
The trailer does nothing for the film.
It's about a woman who is an adult. She is a therapist. She has a fiance. She's dealing with adult things, her job, her, adult sister-in-law. So it really isn't like Truth or Dare. She's not out partying with her teenage friends, and they're not all glamorous. She honestly looks like shit most of this movie, as she should, because she's going through some horrible shit.
She's even trying to cover up the lack of sleep that she has. She's dating A-Train from The Boys, which he plays basically A-Train from The Boys, just with no powers. But I love that he's like that. He, like The Ring, she's getting help from an old ex, kind of to solve the mystery.
Who's Kyle Gallner, who's been in so much. Just earlier this year was in Scream as Stu's nephew, but also from Jennifer's Body and the Nightmare on Elm Street remake and so many other horror movies. He's quite the male scream queen.
I like my horror monsters, and there is a mystery to what it actually looks like and what it is. That really does pay off.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I don't want to go too much into that right now.
Yeah.
The smile is kind of a cool way of you kind of getting to see what the creature really is, because this creature is always smiling. This creature enjoys trauma and pain. It's like a demon. And so, that's its way of kind of revealing itself. As soon as someone's smiling, that creature is now in your presence.
It's kind of like Pennywise or Freddy. It feeds off of your fear.
And it wants to get inside your head.
Yeah, but instead of fear, it's more just your pain.
Yes,
so it picks people who have something horrible that happened to them. So like her mom committed suicide. So it loves her. It loves her. It says at one point it loves her mind.
And your mind is so inviting.
Yes.
And nobody's off limits either. Not even children.
Exactly. It ruins her family life, her friendship, her work life. It ruins everything. Like her sister and her sister's kid, they get traumatized by what's going on with her. Her fiance, which is A-Train. There's even a part where she buys A-Train in this movie. I thought that was kind of funny.
I also kind of, one of the things I like about this is she plays a therapist, and I think she does, because she has her own trauma, and she picks a job where she's not getting filthy rich or anything. She's really trying. She's really trying to help people and make a difference. And so she does try to listen, but we all in our society have this way of when people start telling you about seeing things or anything like that, people shut down and they instantly go into therapist mode, like, well, that's not really there, instead of just hearing that person, because to them it's real. And that's what this movie is really saying, is it doesn't matter if it's not physically there, if it's in your head, it's real enough to you. And so it's saying a lot of these people who are having trauma and hallucinations and stuff, it's making you understand that if it's in your head, that is reality. For that person, it's reality.
She was really good in that role too. When getting across that how stressed out she was when people just wasn't listening to her. She's telling her, "I'm not crazy."
Yeah.
And usually I just think, but it really did affect me when I saw that.
And it calls back to the beginning, because the first girl she meets, her patient, says, "I'm not crazy. I have a PhD. Listen to me. Yeah. Why aren't you listening to me? I'm going to die here and no one is listening to me." And then she ends up being the same way. Come on, listen to me.
It's an endless cycle. And that's why I think the whole movie's like point is to try and break cycles of violence, cycles of pain and suffering and trauma and all that stuff. All that negative energy is a cycle that we all share with each other and pass on. And I think that's the whole point, is trying to break it.
And it's also trying to tell us, like, when someone says they're experiencing something, even if to you it seems like something that's, you know, a hallucination, making us understand that to that person it is real and they deserve to be listened to. Even if you don't think it's possible, their pain is real and they deserve to be heard.
What they're suffering from is real, even if it isn't physically real. So I think it is a good metaphor in that sense. Plus, it also, even take that out, it's still a great story. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't have much hopes going into this, but it left me with a smile. Anything else you guys want to add real quick? Or?
It was great entertainment. I was falling asleep because I was tired, but there were it was one of the worst cinema experiences in a theatre I've ever had.
Oh,
but I still liked the film, which complements how good the film actually was, because...
Exactly.
It sounds like Monty really liked it too.
I wanted to do a shout out to Kevin, Monty, James, and Tom. Thanks, guys. And yes, he was...
A.B. James?
Yeah, James.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I just didn't say A.B. But the gore is great, too. There's actually some really good gore in here. Like I said...
There's a part in here, like I said, a lot of this reminds me of The Ring, and there's even one part in particular where she's talking to someone, which is really cool, little short part played by... she was in Scrubs. I can't remember her name. I'm drawing a blank, but I loved her.
Oh, yeah. She wasn't a nurse, though.
Yeah.
She wasn't a nurse in this.
No.
There was a bunch of nurses in this, but she wasn't one of them.
She's describing a dead body, and then they show the face, and the face is horrific. And it reminded me so much of The Ring, when Naomi Watts' character is talking to her sister, and she's like, her face, and then you cut to her face.
Yeah, the deaths in this are very brutal.
And it was done well because there wasn't a loud blaring noise. Like, that was a really effective jump scare.
Yeah.
There's some jump scares in this that are really just, here's a horrible visual that you were like out of nowhere. You know, some of them, I'll admit, some of them are, it cuts to a car or something, but a lot of them are really effective. You know, it's trying to put you in the position of this person who, from any point in the room, this creature can show up and be right in her face. And so it needs you to understand what it would feel like. And it also does this by constantly moving the camera to the point where it's dizzy.
He has fake outs too, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Loads
it does.
of fake outs.
Like I said, in the first third, I guess there was some of those that just, here's a loud noise or here's a jump scare that I didn't really like. But once she is actually haunted, the jump scares make sense. Like, they are going for it. And so 2/3 of the movie, I actually really didn't come around to those things. But there's also more going on. There's, like I said, there's good gore. There's just good suspense. There's other things that keep you interested.
Good practical effects too.
Yes, exactly.
I will say, if you saw the trailer, this one doesn't spoil too much. The only regret I had about the trailer is there's a brilliant jump scare where she's in her car and her sister comes up to her and the head just bloop.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I kind of wish I hadn't seen that in the trailer, though.
Yeah, that would have been the best jump scare for me if I didn't see it. Because I turned to you and said, I've just seen this.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with the trailer, you don't really get context in it, so I think it's a better scare when you actually know why that happens.
Yeah.
But please check it out, because the trailer does nothing for it.
Yeah.
The trailer,
feels like a completely different movie.
Even the posters and stuff, I feel like they're not quite letting you understand how psychological this is. This isn't a silly, cheesy kind of movie. This isn't like a slumber party movie. This is I would put this, like we said, it's more in line with like The Ring, The Grudge, It Follows. It's more in that league. It's not in that, and I love those Blumhouse movies. I'm not shitting on them. I'm just saying that this is the kind of movie that it is. It's not a slumber party, a Blumhouse, a Truth or Dare, Fantasy Island kind of movie. It's not that.
No, I think it was marketed wrong. That's probably the biggest problem with the movie, is the way it was marketed.
It is a slow burn.
Yeah.
But
it takes its time, and I think it's doing that to make those jump scares more effective, because you're looking around, you're like, because a lot of times
it was effective.
The lighting is such that it's so dark, and then you're like, oh, there's somebody there, and so you know there's a jump scare coming, and you're waiting for it, and when you finally relax, you're like, okay, I guess nothing's gonna happen. Then it happens.
It's like, I'm leaving.
Yeah, we should have brought you like a pad or something.
I was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna walk out. No.
He was so stressed out. It was so funny.
And there's like the cutest cat in this movie. It was a great actor.
Oh, and its name was Mustache, and it was so good. I will say, if you can't, you know what, we'll talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to the spoilers real quick. Not much I have to say about it, spoiler-wise.
So what I was going to say is if you can't handle, pardon me, movies where pets are in danger or die, this is one that's going to upset you.
Though it is one of the best scenes, and even though I love animals, you don't see Mustache die. You just... She takes the train that she bought to her nephew's birthday party, and he unwraps Mustache. And we knew Mustache was missing, so I saw that coming, but you know what? Just the tension in the room, and you're just like, oh, no. You don't want to watch, but at the same time, it's like a car crash. You have to watch.
Worse,
you know that this is going to be bad, and you know it's going to be horrible. There's a room full of people, and the psycho aunt that's going crazy, apparently, gave her nephew a dead cat for his birthday. And it's just... And
one of the reasons why I liked it even more, because I always like films when it's going to make me sound like a sicko, but I'll explain that I'm not. And where things happen to children in films. Because you know the bad guy's not got any limits.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's, you know that you don't know what's going to happen if the bad guy, if the villain's going to be like that.
What I really liked about this movie, like as far as spoilers go, is I kept thinking, well, she does at one point meet somebody who survived. And she's like, well, how did you survive? And it's because he murdered somebody. He straight up mutilated somebody, and you need to have a witness to it. But if you do that, you're still spreading the trauma. And that way you can...
not kill yourself.
You can, yeah. And so she's debating whether or not she's capable of that. And I kept thinking the only way to truly kill this demon is to go off somewhere completely alone and kill yourself, because then there's no witnesses. But the thing about this thing is it's in your head. So it can make you, if hypothetically, if you did that, and this doesn't happen in the movie, hypothetically, you could think you're on an abandoned beach. You're actually in Times Square and thousands of people are seeing you do it. So that's what's hard is it's, again, like when people are really under a lot of trauma and they're having hallucinations that feel very real, they don't actually know what's going on. And I think that's the scariest part of it.
Yeah.
When you're losing your mind, you think you're someplace that you're not. You think someone's there that isn't. And this movie does a great job of making you understand how scary that would be.
The part of trauma's been isolated, and that's exactly what it does to her at the end.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this demon. It wants to take your mind, so you literally lose your mind. And I love that about it. Like, that's really cool. That's scary. She is literally going crazy because she's losing her mind to this thing who wants inside her head.
And it effectively shows how other people react to that. You know, when you're losing control of your body, people are sympathetic and they're like, you know, what can I do? How can I help? When you're losing control of your mind, people get the fuck away from you. They're like, oh, you're scary. You're dangerous. I don't, you know, even the people who supposedly love you. And you really find out who's actually there for you.
And our neighbor's cat is called Mr. Train. So when she gave a toy train that was really a dead cat, I'm like, oh man, that's sad.
And it's not one of those films where it doesn't really, because a lot of films like that, you don't actually see the big bad, and you see it and it looks phenomenal. And you really do need to check what it looks like.
It's so fucking cool.
Brilliant creature.
It's got like all these mouths from all the like different people it's taken over. It's so cool looking. But yeah, like you said, I like that was cool. Like the ring, the way to like kind of move the curse on is to give it to someone else. The copy. That's kind of what you have to do. If you don't want to die, you got to kill someone else. And it's not easy to do.
Yeah, it doesn't want to be satisfied by anything. It just wants to be passed on. It just wants to spread hate and pain.
Exactly.
And my only issue with the movie, and it's not a strong issue because it could have. I've seen so many movies where they do explain, and it's just like, wow, this feels really stupid. Yeah. But I did like in The Ring how you kind of uncover more details and stuff, and it was really fascinating. I don't know if I know I don't need the demon completely explained to me, but a few more details on it, or even just more people's experiences, I think would have been really interesting to see. But super minor complaint.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing I had with It Follows. Like, I kind of want to see a little more and know a little bit more.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't need to. Like, it was just great as it was, kind of not knowing. So that's how I feel about the demon in this. It looked really fucking cool at the end. It's like this giant version of her mom at one point, and so creepy looking.
It's got different stages, hasn't it?
But like at one point, the guys were asking, like, could this be a franchise? And because we don't really know anything about the demon, we don't even know what it's called. I don't think that's a possibility. I don't think you can have a sequel or anything to this because it would just be the same movie because we don't need anything. Unless you did a sequel where you actually did give it a name and you did give it... I mean, you could do it that way.
It had a name in the credits.
I felt like that's what happened with Freddy, though. You didn't really see him at all, and then it goes on and you learn more about him. I think they could do that, not with like 4 or 5 films. I think they could just do it with 2, and that'd be done.
It was in the credits. It's named The Monstrosity.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, but no one's gonna call it that. It needs a name like the Smiler.
My mind
contemplates
the jump scare music. Sometimes it's way too much.
Oh yeah, like I said, that's the jump scare sounds, and mostly the sounds. It wasn't even so much visual jump scares. It's like these noises, like phones ringing. But
I really enjoyed the
loud.
visual jump scares. Yeah, just the music and some of the camera angles. I don't know if it was because I was hungover or not. It made me feel a little.
But I
think it was supposed to disorientate you though. Like they play around with the camera a lot. There's like these upside views they really like
they love to, they really want you to feel like you're losing your mind, that you're going crazy, and they do a lot of things with the camera movements to kind of put you in that position.
Just the lad from...
What's up, Christian? What's up, Brandon?
Hey, Christian. But one thing I expected to dislike in this, because there are a lot of movies where it has this kind of effect, and there's a lot of CGI. The CGI is really well done in this. There's some scenes where they're using a combination of practical and CGI, and some effects obviously could only be accomplished with CGI, which I think is the best time to use CGI.
Yeah, when you need to.
And they did, like, the part where it goes into her mouth. That obviously is all done with CGI. And it looked really, really good. And I think that was cool, because you do know that eventually this thing is possessing the people. And so you're kind of like, well, what's that look like? And you get that reveal at the end there. And it looked really good. They put a lot of time into making that effect look really good. And it was also nice that it wasn't super close up to the characters.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, that's about all I really have to say about it. Rich said see it. I say see it.
I say see it.
Yeah, I don't know if you have to necessarily see it in theaters, but it is like mostly our theater experience wasn't great because of the people that were behind us. But
I'm gonna say see it in the theaters, because for the jump scares to be at their utmost effectiveness, you want that loud surround sound, and the surround sound also, you can hear it moving around you, and so I would say either a really good surround sound system. But yeah, I think you should see this in the theater. I think you should. Hopefully you have a better crowd than we do, but see it in the theater. I liked this movie. I'd give it a solid 3 stars. I think it was good.
yeah.
Or 3.5 stars. That's what I would give it.
All right. Well, we're about to do another review, so come back in about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, join us. We'll be talking about Pearl here in just a little bit.
Yep. All right.
Bye.
Cut.